Welcome to another episode of B-Movie Enema, the series. I'm Geoff Arbuckle, your best-dressed horror host in all the land. Now that over there is Nurse Disembaudee, but what's your problem over there?
You said the best-dressed horror host?
Well, sure, why not?
Okay, well, I can think of at least, everything that's wrong with that statement. First of all, you're not a horror host. Second, are you really a host? Yeah, you pretty much just abandoned any semblance that you are a doctor or what? Yeah, those are just t-shirts.
Well, I don't know, I think these give me character.
Sure, whatever, those aren't even real glasses. Speaking of character... Exactly. Not only do you just wear t-shirts and dumped the whole Scrubs thing and what have you, you don't do a voice or makeup or... I mean, you take a look at some of the other guys out there, you probably need to up your game, Enema Man.
Seriously, where'd all that come from?
Just setting the record straight.
What record?
You come in here saying you're the best-dressed horror host in all the land. I figured...
Yeah.
You could probably use a shave.
Well, I do shave around the spots of my neck and face where I don't want my beard.
I'm talking about your ass. You're like a Sasquatch.
Okay. Anything else?
You could probably cut back on the garlic in your food. Maybe consider a different deodorant. Just because you can wear long sleeves, that doesn't mean you have to use them as Kleenexes. Oh, and don't get me started on the hair you leave in the shower. Have you ever considered that maybe you should wash your hands each and every time you use the bathroom?
All right. Just give me the fucking movie. All right. Now, this week, we have ourselves a Spanish-Italian co-production called The Fourth Victim. Now, this comes from director Eugenio Martin. Now, Martin's career began in 1955 when he wrote and directed a few shorts. Now, his first feature was in 1961 with Conqueror of Maracaibo. Now, I could go on and on listing off his movies, but it would probably be quickly deduced that there aren't that many movies that you'll likely know. Martin was Spanish, which means pretty much all of his career was spent in Europe making international films that were often co-productions between Spain and other European countries. That said, there are a couple of notable films on his resume. The first is the spaghetti western he made in 1966 called The Bounty Killer. It was released here in the United States as The Ugly Ones. Now, he made several westerns, but The Bounty Killer was by far his most popular, and during the credits of Quentin Tarantino's 2012 film Django, the song that plays during the credits is called Ode to Django. Now, in that song, lines from The Bounty Killer are sampled into the composition. However, I think his much more popular and beloved film is 1972's Horror Express. Now, that opportunity came when he caught the eye of American producer Philip Yordan. Now, with Yordan, Martin made 3 films: Bad Man's River, Horror Express, and Pancho Villa. Those 3 happen to be the 3 movies that immediately followed The Fourth Victim. So when it comes to Horror Express, that starred the marvelous Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. Both of them basically play sort of good guys, at least they're the protagonists. That's a movie that makes me think of the type of claustrophobic types of horrors like Alien. In Horror Express, you have a monster on a train that is basically not going to stop, and that monster has a whole lot of captive targets to terrorize. I mean, it's a pretty good flick. I would highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. And if you have seen it, hey, watch it again. Alright, so let's get this movie started. We'll be back after the first segment of The Fourth Victim, and we'll talk about our leading lady for the movie, Caroll Baker.
Yeah, where would I find Mr. Anderson?
He's over there.
Thank you. Dig her up again, will you? It's the magistrate's orders. Are you Arthur Anderson?
Yes?
Superintendent Dunphy of the Criminal Investigation Department of New Scotland Yard. You're, I'm afraid, on a rather disagreeable mission.
Well, I don't think anybody comes here on a pleasant mission, Mr. Dunphy.
Yes, you're right.
Would you mind holding these for a minute?
What?
Thank you.
Here we are. Yeah, this paper, Mr. Anderson, is the magistrate's order for the exhumation of Mrs. Gladys Henderson's body. It is to go to London for an autopsy, eh? Somebody's preferred charges. Somebody who questions the cause of your wife's death. So you may have to stand trial for murder.
And who made the charge?
The company that you insure with, eh? The British and Commonwealth Insurance Company.
Thank you.
Another of your family, sir?
Yes, my wife.
Your wife, you say? Well, that means they're digging up the wrong woman.
No, wait. This was my previous wife.
You had me worried then. You've already been married, have you?
3 times.
I see. 3? Ooh. That's quite a handful, eh?
Piper, please.
Yeah, then 2 new, please. There.
Oh,
There.
it isn't.
Are you Arthur Anderson?
Yes, sir?
You are charged that on the 12th day of June, 1970, within the jurisdiction of this, the Central Criminal Court, you did murder Gladys Anderson. How do you plead? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Are you the senior forensic officer at New Scotland Yard?
Yes, sir.
And did you carry out the post-mortem on Gladys Anderson?
Yes, sir, I did.
Would you tell the court your findings?
It was impossible to establish the cause of death with absolute certainty. Mrs. Anderson apparently died from drowning.
Would you please explain to the court the exact sense in which you use the term apparently?
Yes. The post-mortem showed the presence of a large dose of the barbiturate seconal in the bloodstream of the deceased.
How large a dose?
In my estimation, a lethal dose.
How do you tie this up with your reference to drowning, Doctor?
It's my opinion that when Mrs. Anderson went into the swimming pool, she was already in a comatose condition.
Mr. Mitchell, is it right that you, in your capacity as managing director of the British and Commonwealth Insurance Company, requested an investigation into the circumstances surrounding Mrs. Anderson's death?
Yes, sir.
Why?
Mr. Anderson has been widowed 3 times, and as his 3 wives all carried life insurance with my
Objection,
company...
my lord. Can this really be admissible? Are the prosecution really suggesting that it is reprehensible to be a widower? I am one, my lord, and if I might be impertinent, I believe your lordship is one, too.
I find it quite admissible.
You say that Mr. Anderson had insured the lives of his 3 wives with your company. Would you mind telling the court the amount of these insurance policies?
For the first Mrs. Anderson, £5,000. For the second, £40,000. For the third, £120,000.
And if I'm not mistaken, that comes to £165,000 over a period of 3 years. Evidently the profession of widower is a remunerative one for Mr. Anderson.
My lord, really?
Yes, I think that's an improper remark. Delete it.
My apologies, Your Lordship. Mr. Mitchell, would you tell the jury what was the exact nature of the claims Mr. Anderson had previously made to your company?
He told us that the first Mrs. Anderson died in a traffic accident when she was driving his car, which had faulty brakes. That the second Mrs. Anderson was killed when she fell from a building under construction, which she was visiting with her husband. And that the third Mrs. Anderson died from an overdose of barbiturates, which her husband had bought.
Swear by Almighty God that the evidence I will give to this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Mr. Anderson, you have made a plea of not guilty. Then why did you conceal the true cause of the death of your wife? The certificate you tricked Dr. Brooke of Ludview into signing only stated embolism of the lung.
I thought my wife died of drowning. I didn't want a post-mortem to be done.
Very touching. And didn't you have other motives for pretending your wife had died a natural death? Answer the question, Mr. Anderson.
My other wives died in accidents. This time, I was afraid.
Afraid of what, Mr. Anderson? Oh, no, you don't need to reply. It would be quite logical to be afraid, Mr. Anderson. I am going to ask you a question you are not obliged to answer. But if you choose to do so, remember you are under oath. When you married each of your prospective wives, were you in love with them, or were you merely interested in their fortune?
My lord, that cannot be a proper question.
You may continue. The witness will answer the question.
Yes, I loved them. I never lied to them.
And were you still in love with them at the moment of their death? Weren't you tired of them? Weren't you weary of having to live with a woman you no longer loved?
The most important thing in my life has been love. I can't live with a woman that I don't love.
Answer the question. Did you or did you not love them at the time of their death?
No, I did not love them.
Felicity Downing.
Felicity Downing.
I have served in Mr. Anderson's house for 15 years, and I'm quite certain he has never killed anybody.
The jury will decide that, Mrs. Downing. I only want to ask you a few questions. Was Mrs. Anderson in the habit of taking barbiturates?
Yes.
Since when?
A few months after she was married. She seemed to change in many ways. From being a very happy, outgoing person, she became sad and hardly ever left the house. I think she was ill.
Mrs. Downing, could you tell the court if the conjugal relations between Mr. and Mrs. Anderson were, shall we say, affectionate?
You mean, were they in love with each other?
Did they sleep together?
No. For some months, Mr. Anderson had been sleeping in the guest room.
No more questions, my lord.
Witness may stand down.
Is anything wrong, Mrs. Downing?
Well, sir, the prosecutor wouldn't allow me to answer the questions as I wanted. But now I can see that you're accusing Mr. Anderson unjustly. And there are a few things that I would like to add to my testimony.
I object, my lord. This is highly irregular. The witness has already given her evidence.
If the witness has something important to say, let her return to the witness box.
Mrs. Downing, you are still under oath. You may proceed.
On the night before Mrs. Anderson died, I seem to recall it was 10:30, I went into Mrs. Anderson's room. She had a glass and some pills in her hand. She was going to swallow a whole bottle of Seconal. I forced the glass and the pills away from her and told her I would tell Mr. Anderson. The poor woman began to cry. She begged me not to say anything to anyone. And now I'm paying for not doing so. The fault was mine. If I'd told someone, she would still be here.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict upon which you're all agreed?
Yes.
Do you find the prisoner guilty or not guilty?
We find the prisoner not guilty.
Promised to take me to the sale at Selfridge's.
Oh, don't worry, my dear. We'll get there.
My own fault. I should have gone this morning with Mrs. Harris. It's in your own interest. She told me they got some lovely shoes there for only £3. What are you looking at? Who's that man?
He's the one and only man I admire. He's had 3 wives, dear. And he got rid of them all. And it made him rich. I'll only be a moment.
What's the matter with you? You're not on duty today.
The police, dear, are always on duty.
Hello, Superintendent.
Fancy seeing you here, Anderson.
Why are you following me?
Oh, Lord, no one follows you. You must have a very fertile imagination. Anderson, if you're thinking of taking a holiday, I suggest you pick somewhere like the Bahamas. Best time of the year now. You won't get bored, as there are hundreds of rich, beautiful girls there looking for adventure.
Have you anything specific to say to me, Mr. Dunphy?
All right, I'll be frank with you. I'm not happy you got off today because I'm sure you committed murder. And I intend to prove it.
You're forgetting I can't be tried for the same offense twice.
And you are forgetting, Mr. Anderson, there are many women still left in the world, especially in the sunny Bahamas. Fascinating millionairesses, You will be married again in no time, I bet you.
Oh, no, I won't. But if I want to, you won't stop me.
On the contrary, I'd like to see it. I'll just wait. I'm an expert at that, Mr. Anderson.
Have you ever been in love?
I've been married for 20 years. So, of course, I've been in love.
And it's easy to see that you're happily married, Mr. Dunphy. Congratulations. Doesn't happen to everyone.
Mr. Anderson, why didn't you let me know you were coming back? I'd have had the house in order.
I'm only staying a few days.
If you want, I can make you something to eat.
No, thank you. I'm not hungry.
Should you want anything at all, sir, just ask. I know what you've been through.
Thank you. Felicity, what you said in the court about Mrs. Anderson, was that true?
No, sir.
Then why did you say it?
I wanted to help you, sir. Things seem to be getting so complicated.
Do you think I'm guilty?
No. It's the very last thing I'd think of. I've been putting a few things away, things that might make you suffer. There's this portrait. Shall we put it back up on the wall?
No, put it away.
I'll go and put it up in the attic.
Felicity?
Yes, sir?
You've been with me for 20 years, and I know that you're very fond of me, as I am of you, but do you think I'm a strange man?
Why should you ask that, sir?
Oh, I don't know, because I don't feel anything. At first I was almost afraid of coming back here, but now it's like nothing had happened. The house is no emptier than it was before. Hey, what do you think you're doing?
Swimming!
Very funny.
I felt so hot. This is the only house in the neighborhood with a pool.
What are you doing here? Looking for a story? I mean, you work for some newspaper?
Me? I don't even read the newspapers. Hand me the towel, will you? Say, are you so important that the journalists come at midnight to interview you?
I'd be obliged if you'd leave.
I'm sorry. I suppose this is your property.
Yes, it is, and you are trespassing.
Oh, don't be angry. The house has been dark for such a long time, so I've used the pool. I didn't think there was anybody living here.
Miss, look, I don't know who you are, and I don't really...
Julie Spencer. I don't suppose you'd invite a neighbor in for a glass of whiskey.
I'm sorry, I prefer to be alone.
Oh, well, over and out. What a pity. I certainly have enjoyed this swimming pool. Are you sure you don't want to be more friendly?
Quite sure.
Maybe you'll miss me once I'm gone.
Miss Spencer, why did you really come here?
I told you, because it was hot and I wanted to swim. I live in that Dracula house on the other side of the lake. If you come calling on me, I'll offer you a drink. Bye-bye. Hello? Yes, it's me. Mm-hmm. I just met him.
Look, I'm sorry. I know sometimes I can get carried away.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I felt it would be better to not lie.
Oh, I hear you.
I think it should be important that we uphold high standards of accuracy and truth for the benefit of our viewers, especially if we're talking about ourselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Okay, good. So, not mad at me?
Mad? Whoever said I was mad? I mean, you were only just setting the record straight, right?
Right. So, what you doing over there?
Oh, I'm working on a life insurance policy.
Oh, that's a good way to plan for the future, I suppose. Don't want to worry any loved ones over burial costs, right?
Yeah, no, this one's for you. I'm taking out an insurance policy for you.
Oh. Oh.
All right, so in The Fourth Victim, a wealthy Englishman, Arthur Anderson, has been married 3 times, but he's also thrice widowed. Now, Arthur is played by Michael Craig. Now, Craig had a nearly 70-year career in films and TV. The largest part of his film career came in the 50s and 60s. He was actually groomed to be a leading man for the Rank organization by the end of the 50s, and even earned a BAFTA nomination for Best Actor for the 1958 war film Sea of Sand, in which he co-starred with Richard Attenborough. But Craig mostly worked in British and European films. The contract with Rank was intended to make him a major international star, and that turned out to be somewhat true, as he had consistent work in film roles between the early 50s all the way through to the late 70s. Now, the 70s did cool his film career a little bit as he began working more on television, but again, between 1953 and 1995, he worked relatively regularly, but there are a couple of roles that I do know him from. In film, he did make a couple of Australian films, and one of those was 1982's Turkey Shoot, directed by Brian Trenchard Smith. He plays Charles Thatcher, who was the evil warden of Camp 47 and supervised the Most Dangerous Game style Turkey Shoot. Now, allow me to slip on a tinfoil hat, because I can't help but to notice that his name is kind of a combination of Prince, now King, Charles, and Margaret Thatcher. Considering this is a movie that seems to have something to say about an upper-class society trying to squash dissident voices, the world is portrayed as an ultra-conservative and somewhat dystopian society, and the government imprisons political enemies for use in the titular Turkey Shoot. In a world that was leaning heavily into more conservative values in Britain with Thatcher, and in the States with Ronald Reagan, I have to assume there was some intentional commentary there. But anyway, I definitely give Turkey Shoot a thumbs up. I wrote about it some time ago on the B-Movie Enema blog. But on television, there is a role I definitely recognize.
Let me guess. Star Trek?
Now, typically, you'd think that's where I'm headed, but no, he's a Brit. So when it comes to British actors and television opportunities, was as a guest star in a Doctor Who serial. And in the waning years of the series' original run, he did appear in the 1986 serial, colloquially known as Terror of the Vervoids, which was the 3rd serial in the 23rd season, which was collectively titled The Trial of a Time Lord, which would be the final season of 6th Doctor Caroll Baker's run. However, there is another Baker here that we do need to talk about. See what I did there, Nurse?
Very nice transition, Geoff. Maybe you do have a future in this movie hosting business.
Gosh, I need to make sure that insurance policy went through. But anyway, at the very end of that first segment, Arthur discovers there is someone swimming in his pool. This person, we will soon find out, is something of an admirer. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about what's really kind of going on with Arthur in this movie a little bit later. But that bathing beauty is the American actress Caroll Baker. And at the time that this was released, Baker was about to turn 40, and she was still securing sexy and attractive lady roles. Now, Baker came from West Central Pennsylvania, and growing up, she became interested in marching band, musicals, and she was on her high school debate team. And in her early 20s, she started up acting lessons under famed acting teacher Lee Strasberg. Now, get this. Her classmates are a who's who of big-time film people. She studied with director Mike Nichols and actors Rod Steiger, Shelley Winters, both of whom became Oscar winners, Marilyn Monroe, and her best friend in the class was none other than James Dean. And it wasn't long before she began appearing on TV on the show Monodrama Theater, which was a showcase for one-person dramas. That friend of hers, James Dean, suggested her to play the lead in Rebel Without a Cause in 1955, but she, in perhaps one of the biggest bungles ever, turned down the role. But 1 year later, she did not turn down a supporting role in James Dean's final film, Giant. That was her first major screen role, and despite having been offered a lot of leading lady roles, and she definitely had the looks to be a leading lady, she kind of suffered from insecurity and a little bit of what I think we'd call imposter syndrome, and wanted to kind of stick to lesser profile roles as she was getting started. But despite the efforts to avoid too much limelight, she got the lead in Elia Kazan's Baby Doll, which was meant to star Marilyn Monroe. However, Baker got it because writer Tennessee Williams was so impressed by her performance of a scene from his script at the Actors Studio. Kazan saw her on Broadway at a point too, and thought that maybe she would be better for Baby Doll. Now, Baby Doll established Baker as a sex symbol, leading lady, and a potential A-list star. It also earned her an Oscar nomination for Best Actress. Also, she shared the Best Newcomer Award at the Golden Globes with Jane Mansfield and Natalie Wood.
Seems like every name you mention alongside hers is a big-time person.
Oh, absolutely. Caroll Baker would not be someone who would be quite as remembered as those other names, but she certainly had a lot of fame for a period of time and certainly knew a lot of folks. As Baker's career went into the 60s, she was every bit the sex symbol as anyone else at the time, and that led to her posing in Playboy in 1964 and then being cast in a bunch of potboilers. You know what a potboiler is, Nurse?
No, but I'm sure you'll either tell me or that's how you're going to cash in on that insurance policy you took out on me.
A potboiler is basically another term for an easy paycheck for an artist. If you're a novelist, instead of trying to write the next great American novel, you might write a pulp novel. If you're a filmmaker or an actor, you're making a movie that doesn't ask that much from you. I would say it's a tier kind of either below or right around what we would call exploitation films. But look at it like this. Liam Neeson makes Taken, which I would argue is more of an exploitation action film that's basically there to showcase him being a badass and doing badass action shit, right?
I'm with ya.
Okay, but now, some years later, he makes the movie Retribution, which is basically a knockoff of Taken. And I'd argue that someone put together Retribution to sell it quick and easy, and Neeson is paid somewhat well to basically show up and do typical Liam Neeson things without breaking much of a sweat. Retribution probably could be very easily called a potboiler. But anyway, back to Caroll Baker. She was making a lot of these movies where she was paid to come in, be a sexy woman of dubious repute, and when her highly publicized turn as Jean Harlow more or less flopped, she soured on Joseph Levine, who was basically the guy who sold Baker to Paramount Pictures, and kind of sued him over her contract with Paramount and how she was being handled. Now that essentially blacklisted her and effectively ended her leading lady status in films, at least in the United States. So she went to Italy, and we'll talk a bit more about that after we watch this next segment of The Fourth Victim.
Isn't it a little dangerous so near the edge?
I wonder what you think about in that instant when you know you're going to die.
Never bothered me. Now, you come away from there. You're making me nervous.
I come here often. I like this spot. It changes appearance according to the mood you're in. The first time I came here, I was very depressed. What are you doing here?
Oh, I was just passing by.
And you thought, there's the girl I met the other night. Now I'll just stop by and apologize.
No, that wasn't exactly my intention.
Oh, well, why are you here?
Like I said, just passing by.
I confess I knew you were at home the other night. I stopped in deliberately.
I thought so.
Well, I was curious to find out what you were really like. You're different than the newspaper photos.
Better or worse?
Just different. Do, you control your impulses? When I have an impulse, I can't resist it.
Well, I'm learning to. I passed by your house the other day, and I didn't come in.
Your house is full of feminine details. Did your last wife decorate it?
My last wife and the one before.
Well, still, I would have done it differently.
Well, of course, I've only seen your house from the outside, but it seems a bit big for one person, doesn't it?
That's true. Why don't you invite me to stay here?
Haven't you any family?
I have no immediate family left. My only sister died recently. I lived in that house when I was a small child. That was a long time ago.
Not that long ago.
My grandmother raised me in America. America's always seemed more like home. The house here was always a sad house. I had to come back to see it, see if there was anything worthwhile remembering. But there wasn't. There was a painting here, wasn't there? Of Gladys.
Yes?
I thought I wanted to collect memories, but it is better to wipe them out. That's not always easy, is it? Arthur, were you happily married to Gladys?
No.
Why not?
Well, getting married's like going into a tunnel. Sometimes you just don't come out the other side.
But you've been happy with me the past few days. Isn't that true?
Julie, what is it you want?
Don't you know? Who's there? Who are you?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was told this house was up for rent and...
Well, whoever told you that was mistaken. I live here.
Oh, then you are...
Julie Spencer.
Oh, excuse me for disturbing you. I'd better go.
Who are you?
It's not important. I just thought the house was up for rent, that's all. Are you going to be living here very much longer?
I don't know.
Do you live here alone?
Haven't I seen you somewhere before?
No, never. No, I am sure you haven't.
Good morning, Felicity.
He's not at the house today.
When will he be back?
I don't know. 2 or 3 months. He's gone abroad.
Abroad?
Yes, he decided on the spur of the moment.
Where's he going?
Miss Julie, take my advice. Don't look for him or you might regret it.
Why? Do you think I'm in danger? Where's he gone?
Mr. Anderson said I was to tell no one, especially not you.
Tell me. Arthur, don't go.
How did you know where to find me?
Felicity told me where you were. Why are you leaving me?
Julie, the hovercraft's leaving in a few minutes.
But if you run away, what will I do?
Whatever it was you were doing before we met, I suppose. Now listen, Julie, I don't know whether you're from the police or the insurance company or just an ordinary woman. And quite frankly, I don't really care.
That's not true. I know how you really feel about me. But I didn't think you were such a coward. What are you afraid of? The newspaper headlines? Arthur Anderson marries for a 4th time. How long will this wife last?
Julie, I've got to get on board.
Oh, of course they'll be following you, and there'll be nasty gossip about both of us. But it doesn't matter to me, not in the least. I love you. This is for you.
What is it?
An insurance policy for £50,000. And you're the beneficiary.
But why?
To prove I trust you.
How did you come to pick this company?
Well, it's the company you've always used, isn't it? When I told the managing director your name, he nearly wept. Why don't we invite him to the wedding?
Yeah.
May the good Lord watch over you and keep you both in health and happiness. I hereby pronounce you man and wife. Those whom the Lord hath joined together, let no man put asunder. Amen. Oh, don't forget, your witnesses must sign the book.
I hope you'll both be very happy together.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was afraid you were going to be late.
I am late. Sorry about that.
Would you like to kiss the bride?
Of course. Mrs. Anderson, may I ask you why you insisted I be a witness at your wedding?
I wanted to set your mind at rest.
Set my mind at rest.
Yes, this time your company has made a good deal.
We intend to be very, very happy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And goodbye.
Goodbye.
I hope you have an eternal honeymoon.
Would you be so kind as to sign the book?
I think that woman's just done the most stupid thing in her entire life.
If that turns out to be the case, the responsibility will be ours.
Want me to carry you up?
Oh, don't be old-fashioned. What's in here?
No, you're going the wrong way.
Oh, I wanted to see my house.
Just the guest rooms.
And this? It's It's locked.
Leads up to the attic.
Oh. Anything interesting up there?
No, just a lot of old things. Yeah, I'll show you something really important.
Ah.
Would you like some champagne?
Yes, very cold. Oh, Arthur. And don't be too long, huh?
Mr. Anderson? The same as usual?
Yes, as usual.
Oh, excuse me, sir. What made you decide to remain here for tonight? You know that's a little unusual.
My wife preferred to stay here. Good night, Felicity. Julie? Julie? Well, well, well. The champagne is getting cold, and so am I.
I'm sorry. It's just my feminine curiosity.
Really? Now, what's so damn fascinating about this attic that you couldn't wait to get up here?
I was looking at these paintings. That was Gladys, wasn't it?
So what? If there was something up here you wanted to see, you only had to ask me. You didn't have to break in. Now then, who are you and why are you spying on me?
Let go!
Not until you tell me what you're looking for.
You are hurting me!
Hurting you? You deceitful little bitch, I ought to break your bloody neck!
Is that what you did to Gladys?
Open the door! The lady of the house at home?
The one who lived here?
Uh-huh.
She left very early, Gov.
You know where she went?
She went that way, towards the coast. She was in a bleeding hurry and all.
You may take that sign away. The place is already let.
Hello, Felicity. Has my wife come back?
No, sir, not yet. And she hasn't called either.
No, I don't think anything's happened to her. I think I know where to find her. Good afternoon. My name is Arthur Anderson.
What can I do for you, sir?
I'd like to report that my wife has disappeared.
Well, wasn't she buried a month ago?
Oh, don't be so damn stupid. I'm talking about my new wife.
Ah, so you've been married again?
Yes.
When?
Yesterday, didn't you know?
No.
And I suppose Superintendent Dunphy didn't know either.
Superintendent Dunphy of Scotland Yard? What makes you think he'd know?
Because I just saw him leaving here. Well, he told me I'd get married again, but I never imagined that he'd pick my wife for me.
I don't know what you're talking about, sir. You came here to report the disappearance of your wife, right?
Yes.
Then sit down here and let me fill in the details for the report. What's your wife's name?
Her name is Julie Spencer.
Did you say Spencer?
Why? You know her?
Julie Spencer. I think I do.
Yeah, I might have known it.
I'm sure she was one of the people involved in an investigation here.
What investigation?
If my memory serves me right, it was in May 1967. That's right. Here we are.
What happened?
You mean you didn't know about it? Julie Mallory, née Spencer. Trial dates May 13th to May 20th. Psychiatrist demonstrates that the accused was mentally ill. Remanded for treatment to the Shepherd Clinic.
That's nonsense.
Julie Spencer was accused of killing her husband, Frank Mallory. That's it, Mr. Anderson. If you ask me, some sort of shock has made her insane again.
What do you mean, insane?
Why, didn't she tell you about it?
No. What was the name of that clinic?
Dr. Shepherd's.
Thanks.
I doubt if you'll find her at the clinic, Mr. Anderson.
I'd like to see Dr. Shepherd, please.
Your name, sir?
He doesn't know me. Just tell him I'm Julie Spencer's husband.
That way, sir.
Julie Spencer. Yes, I remember her. She was here nearly 3 years. Responded well. I don't think she would have done anything silly. I hope not, at least.
What do you mean?
That she's just pretending. That's typical of her paranoia.
Then she's not completely cured.
Well, it's very difficult to know when a patient like that is cured. Like some tea?
No, no thanks.
I decided to discharge her because she'd responded so well to her treatments. She promised to get down here and see me occasionally. I'm afraid she hasn't, actually.
Did she really kill her first husband?
During the trial, I showed how completely irresponsible she was. But in my opinion, she killed him. Or let him die. And that's quite sufficient to make her feel guilty.
Well, what should I do?
It's a very delicate situation. So be patient a while. She'll turn up at home later, I'd say. I think you should wait there.
Thank you, Doctor.
And act completely naturally when she finally does get home, as if nothing had happened.
Tell me, how is Julie? We share the same room here. She said she'd never get married again. Why has she done it?
I don't know.
Please take good care of her. And don't let her go near the lake. Remember, the lake.
What the hell are you doing here?
Waiting for you, of course. Your woman told me to wait, though I must admit she wasn't very happy about it. Beautiful gun this is, Mr. Anderson.
Do you mind? Now, if you have any specific questions to ask me, please do so. If not, I prefer to be left alone.
Alone? You mean that your wife hasn't returned yet?
No.
Where is she?
If I knew where she was, I wouldn't have called the police, would I?
But I think calling the police is really very clever. What I call a red herring, Mr. Anderson. I must say you're a very cool man. Confess, eh? Where have you hidden that body?
Oh, hello, darling. What a day. Oh, I'm so tired.
Julia, this is Superintendent Dunphy of Scotland Yard, my wife.
How do you do?
How do you do? You say your wife?
Are you staying? Would you like a drink?
No. Thank you very much. I must be running along now. It's been a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Anderson. I do hope we'll meet again.
Well, let's put these away, shall we? So late, I'm sorry. It was half closing day in the village. I had to drive into London. Oh, the traffic was unbelievable.
Julie.
I know. I behaved terribly last night. I couldn't help it. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
I've been looking for you all day. I thought something had happened. I saw your car by the edge of the cliff, but there was no sign of you.
I decided to go for a swim early this morning. Oh, the water was freezing. Would you like a whiskey?
Yes, thank you. Julie, tell me the truth. Where have you been?
I told you. I bought a new dress. It's beautiful. I'll go and change while you have your drink. We'll have dinner alone. Just the two of us.
Felicity? Felicity?
She's not here. I gave her the night off because I wanted to be alone with you. How do I look?
Magnificent. Don't tell me you're going to cook dinner dressed like that.
No, we're having cold dishes.
Well, looking at you now, I'd say that your day in London was very well spent.
Arthur, if you could overlook my strange behavior last night, we could begin again, couldn't we?
Darling, I'd like to begin again, but it isn't possible unless we're honest with each other now. Why didn't you tell me you'd been married before?
How did you find that out?
Does that matter?
Who told you?
Dr. Shepherd.
I wish you hadn't gone there. It's a terrible place.
Yes, it is. But sometimes you have to go to terrible places to find out the truth.
You're right, of course. It's much better that we know all there is to know about each other. No matter how difficult that might be. Did Dr. Shepherd tell you that I killed my husband?
No, he said it was an accident.
I don't think it was an accident. I let him die. I'll never forget the look in his eyes.
Julie, all that's over and done with. You've got to forget about it.
Can you forget about Gladys? Don't you feel any remorse?
No, why should I?
I wish I could be like that. Maybe that's the fascination, the reason why I had to meet you. When I read in the newspapers about the trial, I couldn't stay away.
You weren't afraid?
No. I've often thought about dying. I tried to commit suicide, but I didn't have the nerve. Maybe that's why I really married you.
No, I don't believe that's why you married me. Dr. Shepherd told me that you, well, not completely cured, that you needed rest and someone to look after you.
Poor Arthur. I've tricked you.
Hmm?
I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to leave me.
No, I'm not going to leave you. And I have no intention of helping you kill yourself. I have very, very different ideas.
I don't know about you, Geoff. I feel like it wouldn't be the best idea to start immediately courting a man who has recently been on trial for killing his wives.
Hey man, that's Italian exploitation film for you. But let's talk about what's going on in The Fourth Victim, because I do think this is a pretty intriguing little movie. And as I mentioned, Michael Craig is playing Arthur, and the movie opens with Arthur's third wife literally dying. She's taken an overdose of pills to kill herself. Now, generally speaking, even if it is his third wife who has passed away, even with pills or whatever, in whichever way that she chose to kill herself, I don't think you'd automatically think Arthur would be in all that much trouble, right?
Sounds about right. I should know.
Now, but the issue... Wait, for real?
I had a life before working here.
Huh. Okay, anyway, if you have one wife who dies because she's depressed, that's not that big of a deal. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, right? I mean, it's not even that big of a deal to collect on life insurance or mention your marriage has soured. But this was his third wife who expired from unusual circumstances. His first wife was driving Arthur's car, which had faulty brakes, and wrecked, and she died. The second wife died while visiting Arthur at a construction site, which led to her falling from a building to her death. So you've been married 3 times and widowed 3 times, right? Not a great look. Each one of his wives carried a life insurance policy greater than the one prior. The first wife had a £5,000 policy, the second had a £40,000 policy, and his third had a policy worth £120,000. So when you get married 3 times and you've tragically lost all 3 wives due to unnatural causes, and you've cashed out £165,000 worth of life insurance policies, you might be a little suspect.
Yeah, I mean, how could Arthur not be very suspicious? I get if you had a wife who has an unexpected heart attack and dies, then you have another wife who might have one of those accidental deaths, then a third wife also, like, I don't know, has butt cancer or something. That's just unlucky. When you have a suicide and 2 other accidental deaths, that seems pretty suspicious to me.
Yeah, and I also think it's fairly damning that Arthur admits that he and his third wife no longer loved one another. Their marriage had completely fallen apart. But what really kind of makes me laugh a little bit is how his housekeeper, Felicity, takes the stand and basically says that she was more to blame for the wife's death than Arthur. She knew the wife was suicidal and threatening to kill herself, and Felicity told the wife that she was going to tell Arthur, which then pushed her over the edge. And you know what? It works! Arthur is let off and more or less cleared of the charges of murder, or at least somewhat, or some sort of negligence, right? But then the cop follows him, but the inspector is kind of doofy and only follows just in case, I guess, Arthur is a serial killer and can't help but to kill somebody on his way home from his own trial. But he's not really able to do anything to him. It's wild, but it's also so very Italian in these genre films.
I don't know, I'm starting to get a little bit of a bad vibe from that housekeeper.
Yeah, I do too, but you know who I don't get a bad vibe from? Caroll Baker. So let's get back to her story.
Ooh, yes please.
Alright, so previously I mentioned how Caroll Baker got basically blacklisted from Hollywood after a very public falling out with Joseph Levine, who was basically attempting to prop her up as a major star in the 60s, but she was getting less than stellar movies to star in. Now, because she was blacklisted and she had 2 kids at the time, she needed to find where the work was, and this led her to where her star would really rise, if you ask me. Sure, she was in big movies and got an Oscar nomination, but when she went to Europe to find work, Italy would make her a genre superstar. Her work in Italian films began in 1967 with the comedy drama Her Harem. And for the next about decade and a half, Baker worked quite often in European films, but mostly Italian films. So from 1969 to 1972, Baker worked with Umberto Lenzi on 4 classic giallo films. This started with Paranoia, then So Sweet, So Perverse, both of which were in 1969, then 1970's A Quiet Place to Kill, and finally 1972's Knife of Ice. These are considered absolute classics in Italian genre films and make her a massive cult figure in giallo. For basically the rest of the 70s, Baker would be a major draw to European audiences, and this included 1973's Baba Yaga, where she played the titular Slavic folklore figure. Now, the original Slavic figure is usually depicted as an old, kind of ugly woman, and sometimes she eats children and is evil, but in other cases she might be an ally of a hero of the story. However, in the 1973 movie, it's portrayed very differently. For one, Caroll Baker is not that old at that time, and 2, not that ugly, so it's a lot more of a seductive take on the lore, and kind of reminiscent of the beautiful erotic horror film Daughters of Darkness, but I digress.
Ooh, can we watch the sexy witch movie?
Maybe? I don't know. Anyway, by the end of the 70s, she was on her way back to American films, and she would come back in a fairly big way. First, she appeared in Andy Warhol's Bad, and just a few years after that, she got cast in Disney's Watcher in the Woods alongside the great Bette Davis. And shortly after that, she appears in Bob Fosse's Star 80 about the tragically murdered playmate Dorothy Stratton. As the 80s continued on, she then appeared as Jack Nicholson's estranged wife in Ironweed, and that might have very nearly scored her a second Oscar nomination, but she fell just short of making the list. In 1990, she played a villain in the Arnold Schwarzenegger smash hit Kindergarten Cop, and she continued to work throughout the rest of the 90s, but the movies weren't, of course, quite as big as Kindergarten Cop. Now, she did get a bit part in David Fincher's Italian genre pastiche, The Game, in 1997. And Caroll Baker ended up having a pretty decent career. I mean, she very nearly lost everything, fighting back against what she felt was being kind of her career being mishandled by Joseph Levine, but found where the work was and started to really knock it out of the park. The Fourth Victim comes right smack dab in the middle of her meteoric rise thanks to her work in Italian films. It's a fantastic turn she was able to make it all work, and she's truly a fantastic piece of these Italian thrillers. But you know one interesting recurring theme that ends up happening throughout her career?
I'm not sure.
Now, if you go to her Wikipedia page, you will find time and again commentary provided by Roger Ebert. Ebert had to have been something of a fan of hers.
Maybe he had a little crush on her.
Oh, Ebert definitely liked the ladies, but he constantly commented on the quality of her roles and her performances. While still giving a negative review for Paranoia, he still states that she might have just been saying, what the hell, and then decided to just have fun with the part. With 1986's Native Son, he praised her for having this really powerful performance that she shared with Oprah Winfrey in the film's final scenes. He thought she was so good in Ironweed because she elevated her talents and held her own against one of the greatest actors in film history, Jack Nicholson. But my favorite quote from him in her Wikipedia page is his comment about her in Kindergarten Cop, where he called her an effective bitch on wheels. That's just great.
Ooh, I can only hope to someday be an effective bitch on wheels.
Hey, definitely something to aspire to. But still, Caroll Baker is so good in this movie and in everything I've ever seen her in. While she does kind of suspiciously show up in this movie, she is so likable. You know, how can you not want to kind of basically keep being around her and be drawn to her like Arthur is? But let's get back to The Fourth Victim, because boy, do we have a final act for you. I mean, after all, we must always remember that we are, indeed, watching an Italian thriller.
Hello? Yes, it's me. Listen, I can't go through with it. I'm getting too involved. No, I mean involved emotionally. That means I'm falling in love with him. You've got to get me out of here. I'm afraid.
Julie? Who are you talking to?
What are you doing with that gun?
I was cleaning it. I thought I'd go shooting later today. Now, who are you calling and what are you afraid of? I mean, do you think you found out something about me? Were you calling the police?
Oh, no. I wasn't calling the police. I haven't found out anything. And I don't want to know anything.
For God's sake, Julie, we went through all this last night. Now, for the last time, who was that on the telephone?
I can't tell you. I can't tell you.
Julie! Julie, come back! Julie!
Sergeant, if you continue to lean on me, you'll feel the weight of my authority.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. If you were here, why the blazes couldn't you open the door?
Because you didn't give me time.
Well, you can have me up for breaking and entering if it'll make you feel any better. So, our little game is over, eh? I admit I don't have a search warrant, but you don't mind if I look around, do you? Where is she?
Where is who?
The fourth Mrs. Anderson. Her car's been found in a country lane. Oh, you're repeating yourself, Mr. Anderson. I remember your first wife was killed in a road accident. Didn't they say her brakes failed on her?
Oh, for Christ's sake, leave me in peace.
I'm not sure if I appreciate your tone. You should show me a little respect, look you. I know all about you, Mr. Anderson. I've had men following you from the beginning, so I know it all. Mr. Anderson, where's your wife?
In the bedroom.
You mean alive? Come on, Sergeant, we can only hope we're in time. She's still breathing. Call an ambulance and advise the yard, Sergeant.
Oh, don't be so damn stupid. It's only a slight concussion.
That's what you say. But will the pathologist agree? If nothing else, Mr. Anderson, we'll get you for attempted murder.
But who is this girl, sir?
How the blazes did you ever get to be a sergeant? You bloody idiot. It's Julie Spencer, Mr. Anderson's wife.
This girl is not Julie Spencer.
Sergeant Bates, would you call the ambulance and advise the yard that... What was that you said?
I know Julie Spencer well, sir. I was the one that arrested her. And that girl is not Julie Spencer.
Yes, of course. Very commendable, Sergeant. Where is she? You've hidden her, haven't you?
Hidden who?
Don't you give me that, eh? Your wife, Julie Spencer.
Look, I don't understand. This is my wife.
If you don't understand, then I'll explain it to you, and you better damn well understand it then. If this girl is not Julie Spencer, eh? Then where is Julie Spencer?
Doesn't she look awful?
It's true, Frank. Your wife's here. What shall we do?
Nothing. Just ignore her. Get out of here, Julie. Can't you see I'm busy?
it, Frank. You win.
I'm getting bored.
Yes. I bet you are too, Frank. Let's think of something really interesting to do. Frank, does Julie still trust you?
I haven't even thought about it. She's used to me now. She's a very understanding little wife. Right, Julie?
Frank!
Julie, why'd you come back to this house? It doesn't help you at all. You must look to your future. If you keep coming back here, you'll never forget that man. No, Julie. This house is not the ideal...
Why did you force me to do it again, Frank? But it's the end, I promise you. Because I found her. I found your wife, Julie Spencer. And she'll never hurt you again. Like now. Like before. Because I'm going to kill her.
Taken a long time to come round, isn't she?
I gave her a sedative.
Yes, don't worry about it. No, it won't be necessary. Listen, Mr. Anderson. The woman in your bedroom is not Julie Spencer. St. George's Chapel, where you say you were married, has been closed for over 20 years. What's more, nowhere in this county is there a Reverend Fowler.
What are you saying?
All that's been confirmed by births, deaths, and marriages. You are playing a diabolical game of some sort, and I want to know what it is, look you. Well, Mr. Anderson, you may as well answer it. I bet it's your doctor saying he's unable to make it.
Hello?
Is Julie Spencer there, please?
Julie Spencer?
Yes.
Who's this speaking?
Julie Spencer.
Listen, I'm sorry, I can't hear you very well. Did you say that you are Julie Spencer? Yes. Well, why are you calling? What do you want?
Julie killed her husband. She must be prevented from doing that again.
Now listen, I have something very important to tell you concerning Julie Spencer. Where are you calling from? Yes. The old house on the hill. Will you wait for me there, please? Hello? Hello?
Hey, what the... Hey, where the hell do you think you're going, Anderson? Wait a minute.
It's the real Julie Spencer, don't you understand?
Yeah, I understand perfectly, but you're not leaving here.
Don't you want to find out the truth? Well, so do I. I've got to see that woman right away.
All right, but not alone. Bates! Bates!
What are you going to do?
Yes, Superintendent?
We're going to accompany our Mr. Anderson.
What, the three of us, and leave my wife alone?
Don't worry about her. There's another man outside on watch. Nothing will happen to her. Shall we go?
Have you been sent by the police, Doctor?
Yes, Constable. I'm the nurse he called.
The lady of the house is upstairs in the bedroom. This way. Would you like me to take you up there?
No, thank you. I can find the way.
Well, if there's nothing you need, miss, I'll be on my way. I have to report back to the station. Good night.
Arthur. Arthur? Who's there? Who's there? Answer me.
There's no need to be afraid. Don't you know me? Julie Spencer.
What are you doing here? What do you want?
To speak to you.
Look, it's true that I rented your house and tried to impersonate you, but I didn't mean to do you any harm.
But I don't understand you, Julie. What made you rent your own house and impersonate yourself? You see, I've come to help you, my dear. Your problems are over.
What do you mean, help me?
Help you to die. Have you forgotten your fears, Julie? The terrible remorse for being a murderess. It can all be finished with now, Julie.
Oh, no, my name is Lillian.
It's not. Your name is Julie Spencer. And you have just killed Frank, your husband.
Don't come any closer.
And now I am going to stop you before you can kill him again.
Nothing. Not a living soul. Why did Dr. Shepard come here instead of to your place?
I don't know, unless...
Well, speak up, man. Nobody's accusing you of this one.
Well, he knew that this was Julie Spencer's house. He probably didn't know of any other.
Go on. Go on.
Well, I didn't tell him we were living in Warwick Manor.
No, what are you doing?
That woman who called a little while ago, the real Julie Spencer, was looking for my wife.
Meaning?
Who do you think did that? There's no answer.
Hey, no, where do you think you're off to?
Back to my place. Now, come on.
Right. Sergeant, advise the yard. Stay here and keep your eyes open.
Yes, sir. Yes.
What are you two doing here?
And where's Travis?
When we got here, we didn't see anybody. The door was open.
Well, where's my wife?
We looked all over the house for her. I don't know.
Mr. Mitchell, you wouldn't like to tell me what's going on, would you?
Lillian telephoned me.
Oh, I see. Yeah, and who's Lillian?
Oh, for God's sake, Superintendent, she's not here. Now, what are you going to do?
Calm down, if you please, Anderson. I know the whole story. And that is the woman you married is named Lillian, but you weren't really married.
What?
Yes, these two gentlemen here fix it. Tell him.
Well, I didn't...
Well, where the hell is she?
I don't know, I swear it.
Oh, but you know who she is. Come on, tell him.
She's Lillian Martin, Gladys's sister.
Gladys? Don't be daft. The one you drowned in the pool, Mr. Anderson.
Gee. Lillian came to see me just a few days after the funeral. She just arrived from America. She was convinced you'd killed her sister and she wanted revenge. To demonstrate your guilt, she proposed a plan that I thought was crazy. But she told me you didn't know her, that you'd never met each other.
Yes, Lillian was the one who really worked it out. The false marriage ceremony was her idea, too. Wait a minute, Mr. Anderson, I'll explain to you. You see, actually, I just worked for Mr. Mitchell's company, and Lillian Martin felt I looked like a priest.
Yo, some people are born lucky.
So it was all a trick. Well, why did she pretend to be Julie Spencer?
You wouldn't have accepted her if you'd known she was Gladys's sister. Moreover, Julie Spencer was a millionairess with a mysterious past. The perfect sort of bait, so we thought...
Thought I might murder her.
I'm sorry, it was just that...
Mr. Mitchell! That mysterious millionairess, the real Julie Spencer, is a madwoman. Now, she's already killed one person, and it's quite likely that she'll kill again. And right now, I'm pretty damn sure she's with my wife. Do you understand?
Hey, but where would she have taken her?
I don't know, but I'm going to try and find out. The lake. That woman at the clinic said, don't let her go near the lake.
What are you doing? Why did you bring me here?
To help you die. In the same place and manner Frank died.
But why me? It had nothing to do with me. I didn't even know Frank.
You loved him. Only you were very jealous of him.
No, wait, please. Untie this rope and let me go. I promise not to say anything.
He had been drinking. He was tied up with a rope. And the rope was tied to the anchor. At the moment you pushed him over the side, it would have taken only a hand to pull him out. But you didn't offer it, did you? You let Frank drown. You could see him under the water. His eyes were open and pleading, and you just sat in the boat and watched him die.
No, it had nothing to do with me.
You killed him, Julie.
No,
And now you're going to die like Frank died.
No, please. Let me go.
No. You mustn't disappoint him. He's waiting for you.
Ah! Please! Look out!
I must say they are a handsome pair.
Your new insurance policy for £150,000. It's a genuine one.
No, thanks. I'm not interested.
Oh.
I am, though. It's in both our names.
It's a joint policy. If anything should happen to your wife, you would collect. But if anything happened to you, she would be the beneficiary. Well, have a good trip.
Bye.
Good luck.
You know, it's incredible. For more than a year, I was convinced he was a murderer, and now I'm beginning to think he's really a saint in disguise.
He's quite lost without a woman, you know. He only feels happy when he's in love. It's a pity that his women don't stay with him longer. I mean, well, he hasn't been very lucky with his wives, has he?
Wait.
What you got over there, nurse?
So the real killer just drowns herself?
Uh-huh.
Gosh, I guess that was kind of convenient.
Sure is.
Also, was that really all the movie there was?
What do you mean?
Where's the scene that revealed the housekeeper was really the mastermind behind all the crimes and murders? I refuse to believe she was not the real killer of Arthur's wives.
Well, she might have been. I guess we really don't know. That's the thing about The Fourth Victim. It's a classic Italian thriller in the sense that if you think just a little bit about what you're seeing and what the actual plot is, you're going to really be disappointed that none of it really connects like it should.
I still think there's a missing scene for the housekeeper to be found out as the killer of those wives.
It's the reveal in the third act that gets a little weird. Yes, when Arthur tries to figure out more about who this new woman is in his life, the woman played by Caroll Baker, he does learn a few things. First, this Julie Spencer lady does not own the Dracula house across the lake. It's only being rented, and Julie is actually living in a tent inside that house. Second, Julie Spencer seems to be very interested in Arthur based on what she's seen in newspapers. Thirdly, and maybe most importantly, Julie Spencer was once committed for murdering a husband. Now, what we do end up finding out is that Julie is not the real Julie. In fact, she is Lillian Martin, and she is the sister of Arthur's third wife, and she's trying to figure out what she can about the death of her sister. It's kind of odd that her brother-in-law is now thrice widowed, and she wants to know if he's more involved with her death than what the courts could conclusively prove.
She should be investigating the housekeeper, but what do I know?
Yeah, the real Julie Spencer is in fact a crazy person and murderess. She intends on killing Lillian by drowning her in a lake that she herself was terrified of, only to accidentally tie herself to her anchor and then drown herself. Gosh, she was so insane that she tried to project her own fears onto the woman impersonating her and ends up creating a self-fulfilling prophecy that kills herself. My brain is broken. Nurse, give us your final thoughts.
This movie sure is something else, isn't it? I will say I think this movie is interesting. I liked Michael Craig and Caroll Baker, and I did find myself interested in the whole mystery, even if I still to this day believe the housekeeper was killing wives. It is kind of funny that everyone in a position of authority seemed pretty naive. They have more than enough reason to think Arthur is a killer based solely on circumstantial evidence, but someone says he didn't do it? Okay, I guess he didn't do it. The big climax is hilariously convenient that we get introduced to the real killer in the final act, only for her to kill herself. Generally, I liked the vibe of this movie. I'm giving it a solid 4 poops out of 5. It could have gotten a 5, but I had to dock a poop for cutting out the scene that proved the housekeeper was a killer.
Fair enough. I didn't talk about Inspector Dunphy. He is the guy who's consistently tailing Arthur after the courts couldn't convict him for the death of his third wife. He was played by Jose Luis Lopez Vasquez. He was a Spanish actor who's considered one of the great Spanish actors. He had a TV and film career that spanned 60 years. He worked well into his 80s. He was also a major star in theater as well. Over the years, after his death, biographies were written and documentaries were made that were either specifically about him or featured him as a part of a generation of great Spanish actors that has been said there has never really been a replacement for once they all passed away. He's been the subject of artwork and other tributes, and I would suspect that he is a major influence on Spanish actors to this day. In fact, this year there was an exhibition that featured artwork that he himself collected. Now, if you go through his Wikipedia page, it's a very extensive history of a guy who is largely kind of unknown in the US and Canada. It lists all the different awards he won in his career. In fact, he very rarely got nominated for an award he would not ultimately win. Now, Felicity, the housekeeper that I think my nurse is unfairly fingering as a murderer...
She did it!
She's played by Miranda Campa. Now, Campa was an Italian actress born in Switzerland. She came from a family of actors and studied acting in Rome and was best known for being a stage actress, but over the course of 35 years, she racked up over 80 credits in TV and film. She did a lot of voice acting as well for dubbing movies into Italian. All this is to say that The Fourth Victim, while kind of obscure today, is kind of featured a pretty stellar international cast for the four main roles. Well, I think it's time to put this week's episode to bed. I'm Jeff Arbuckle, and that was Nurse Disembaudee. Wait, Nurse? What are you doing over there?
I was checking out some Airbnb listings for houses on this lake that always terrified me back before, I ultimately went crazy.
That's fun, I guess.
Ooh, also check out this deal for a really heavy anchor I just scored on Amazon. Get packed up, we've got a fun weekend ahead.